here we are back in the kitchen with our next preserving project. And this is one that I'm really excited about. So this is the Tropea Onion Jam or marmalade. We're going to substitute just regular sweet red onions. So again, the Tropea Jam originates from Tropea Calabria, which is the toe of Italy, which is the region that my family is from. So Tropea onions are a specialty onion that are only really grown perfectly in that region on the coast, and this is a jam that you'll see often there if you travel to that area. We hope to be heading back after the pandemic, hopefully in 2021, but this is a specialty item of that area, but you could easily substitute just sweet onions, okay? Okay, so let's start by going through all of your ingredients. So I have got 1 pound or 16 ounces of red sweet onions that have been diced. You could dice them quite small if you wish. Mine are a little chunkier, and that's just simply because I have super sensitive eyes, so the quicker I get this task done, the better. I have in the past, when I've doubled the recipe, used my food processor to kind of grate them on the coarser grating part. The only thing is, when you use the food processor, what happens, a couple things. Some of the outer layers won't get chopped, and they'll just kind of get stuck in between the blade and the top. So then what I'll do is I'll hand chop those and then just add them to the rest of the shredded onions. Another thing that happens is the water kind of separates a little bit from the onions. You want to ensure that you use that water, okay? Because when I chop them by hand, you'll see there's no liquid at all whatsoever in here. But because the food processor kind of mashes them or bangs them up a little bit when it's shredding them, we will get some of that liquid come out, okay? So you want to use all of that. There's a lot of flavor in there, okay? So we've got our 1 pound or 16 ounces or 454 grams, if you want to go metric, of our onions. This is just a regular sweet red onion, okay? You could probably use a Vidalia or any other type of sweet onion. I like the coloring on these, and they are similar to the color of the Tropea onions, and that's why I choose to use the red. Okay, so those are ready, and this recipe can easily be doubled or even tripled, but it's really going to extend the cook time. So I prefer to either do a single batch or just a double batch, no more than that, because otherwise you're here for a very long time, and it'll take a very long time to stir it and cook it down, and you'll see when we get to that point. Okay, next ingredient, 2 cups of just regular granulated sugar, 1 cup of red wine, so you want something hearty and like a stronger Southern Italian hearty wine. This happens to be a Chianti. It's what I had on hand. So, I mean, don't make an extra trip to the store. Hopefully, you know, you have like a nice hearty red around. So anyways, this is Chianti is what I had. So that's what I'm going to use today. Okay. Next we have our 3/4 teaspoon of salt, and that's just regular sea salt. Okay, then I have my cheesecloth here. I've got it all ready, and in the cheesecloth, I've got my 10 peppercorns, my 1 whole clove, 1 bay leaf, 1 inch piece of a vanilla bean, and half a cinnamon stick. Okay, I've got that in here, and I've got a little piece of string, so I'm just gonna tie this up and have it ready, my little sachet. And that's just obviously so that everything doesn't run amok in there and it all stays together, so at the end you can just easily pull it out without having to search for everything. Now, I have found in the past that sometimes the peppercorn will kind of get away through one of the holes on the cheesecloth, but that's all right. I think the peppercorns are probably the least offensive to kind of get in your mouth. You don't want a piece of that cinnamon stick or a piece of that vanilla bean. But that adds a beautiful flavor to this. This is just a fantastic marmalade or jam. Kind of sweet, kind of savory, a bit of both. So there's our sachet, it's all ready. But I just love this. Perfect with cheese, just like some of the other things that we've done. It's great to serve with cheese. It's fantastic on a burger, especially with some blue cheese. And also any grilled meat. It's a lovely little accompaniment. Okay, so we've got our sachet, and then the last thing is 2 tablespoons of red wine vinegar. Okay, so we're all ready. This recipe makes about 2 250 ml jars and 1 125 ml, which is half size of this. I've actually run out of small jars, so I'm going to, I'll probably fill up the 2, and whatever's left, I'll just put it in the fridge and use it. So in the meantime, I have 3 jars prepared, and I've already sanitized these. I've got my rings all ready to go. I've got my snap lids in my pot ready to boil when we need those. So we'll get those ready when we need them. I also have my trusty tongs. I have got my jar lifter. I've got my bubble remover, my magnet. Now I do have a wooden spoon that I'm going to mix, but I also have a spatula, and that's what we'll use to check it. So it's good to have a spatula. And then also another thing today we're going to need is a thermometer. Okay. I know there were some questions around the strawberry balsamic jam and jams and gelling and all that. So with this recipe, we're going to go over that a little bit more closely. And now that we do have the ability to do close-up shots as well as the wide angle shots, I'm going to show you some real close-up shots of the pot so we can ensure that everybody has a nice thick onion marmalade when you're done, and that everything sets really well. So I'm going to show you both in the pot with the spatula, and also we're going to do the little frozen plate test. So I've got some little plates in my freezer right now so we can check the jelly there. So we'll give you a couple of methods also actually with the thermometer temperature. Okay, so a few ways around there. We determined when we did our first jam that we needed a little bit more instruction on that. So that will be in today's presentation. Okay, so I've got a pot, and as always, I like a heavy bottom pot and a wooden spoon. If you're doubling, you want to make sure that everything can fit in there. Another thing that's nice is a large surface area. Okay, so we don't want a tall, skinny pot. Because this has to cook down, it's better if there's a larger surface area. Okay, so this pot is, quite large for what we're going to do, but the reason I'm using this as opposed to a small little pot is I like the surface area on it just so it reduces down a little bit quicker. Okay, so in the pot, we are going to add, first off, our onions. So in they go, and actually I'll turn on the burner as well. So we're going to start on high heat, and then we'll turn it down to a simmer once we start going. Okay, so we've got our heavy bottom pot. We've added our onions in here. Okay, and then to that we're going to add our 2 cups of sugar. We're going to add our 3/4 teaspoon of salt. That needs a little bit of help getting out of there. And our 1 cup of red wine. Okay, so let's give this a little mix just to start. Let me get rid of that. I'm just going to kind of help it along because the sugar's got to dissolve. So I'm starting on high heat, and then we'll turn it down as need be. Okay, so now that I've got, some liquid in there, I'm going to add the sachet just so it can do its thing. And I'm just going to cover it with our mixture. Okay, so let's just give that a stir every once in a while, and we're going to bring it up to a boil. So we're going to bring this up to a boil over a medium heat. So now that we always get started on a little bit higher. So now I'm on medium heat, and we're just waiting for this to come up to a boil. So keep in mind, if you're doubling the recipe, it's going to take longer than a single batch to come up to a boil. Okay, we're just coming up to a boil now on the medium-high heat. So now we're going to just turn it down a bit till it's at a nice simmer, and this is where it's going to cook down and reduce. Okay, so this is the part where we've got to be patient because it's going to take anywhere from 20 minutes or more. So 20 to 25 minutes for one batch, and it won't be double for a double batch, but it will certainly be longer than 20-25 minutes, depending on the type of pot and your stove. It could be another 10 or 15 minutes more if you're doing a double batch. Okay, so we're just going to stir this occasionally, and we're going to get it down to a nice little simmer. So once it starts getting thick, then we're going to get our thermometer in there, and we're going to check the temperature. It should be between 220 and 225 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, so it's still boiling hard even though I've turned it down, so I'm going to turn it down just a little bit more. Okay, so this might take a little bit of time, so please be patient. Okay, it's been going for some time. It's reducing, but you can still see it's not thick. So This is about 10 minutes in. Okay, so we're going to continue to do that. It may be longer than 20 or 25 as indicated. Depends on your stove and your pot and a number of things. So let's just keep going and stirring it occasionally. Okay, it's still simmering. Actually, it's simmering pretty hard. I'll turn it down a little bit because it's getting more reduced. It's definitely getting thicker. But you can see there's still liquid in there. It's going to go quicker though now. It should reduce more quickly. So just be patient and keep stirring. Okay, it is noticeably thicker now. You can see it's leaving a little bit of a road or path. I took a temperature. I don't know if I can get it to show you. You can't read it on my thermometer, but I could only get it up to, it says between 220 and 225. I can get it up to 222. So I think that's about as high as I'm going to get mine. I am going to do the freezer test though to show you. Okay, so I had my little plate in the freezer. I'm going to put a little bit of the jam on here and I'm going to pop it back in the freezer for about 3 minutes. Okay, while we're waiting for our jam in the freezer, I'm going to show you this little test. So see how there's a little roadway that can be left from the spatula and then it just fills up really quickly? That's your indicator as well that it's thick enough. Okay, so between 220 and 225, or the little roadway, or placing the jam in the freezer for a couple of minutes. So I'm going to run over and check it. So you got a few ways in order to check this for consistency. Okay, here we go. It's come out of the freezer and you can see that it has firmed up nicely. It's very sticky and very delicious too. There you go. Okay, so we checked our temperature. We checked our spatula test and we checked it in the freezer. So we know it's good to go. So we're ready to proceed. So we're going to turn it off, take it off the heat. Okay, so I'll just move it off of the heat. And now we're going to add our red wine vinegar. We'll give it a stir. Oh, it smells amazing. And now it's ready to ladle into our prepared jars. If you want, you can get in there with your tongs and remove your sachet. Try and get as little jam on it as possible. So I'm going to just give it a little shake and remove that. And let's get our jars ready. And while it was boiling down, I actually found a 125 ml jar. I thought they were all done, so I found one last one. So I'm going to see how we do. Because of course, it always depends on water, right? It always depends on how much water is in the onions in this case, as to our final yield. It did cook down, but we'll see. So we'll either get our two 250 jars and a 125, or we might be able to sneak it into 3 of the 250s. We're going to leave about a 1/4 inch of headspace. Let's do that for now, and then I can always top them up with a spoon. Yeah, actually, I think I might not even get 2 jars. It's too bad it wasn't more of a science, eh? We always end up with all these different yields, and I mean, it's different every year when I make this stuff too, so it looks like all I'm going to get is 2 jars. So let me get rid of those. I'm going to get a spoon just to ladle up this last bit. This is so delicious. You will definitely want to do another batch. This is one of those things when you have, for example, a burger. If you've ever had a really good gourmet burger, it's all the little side garnishes or the little side dishes or finishes that really make a dish. Okay, so in this case, an onion marmalade is exactly that. It's just going to bring the dish or elevate the dish, and you'll impress everybody with how delicious this is. Okay, so now we're going to go in. This, because it's pretty thick, there shouldn't really be any air bubbles, but we're going to check it. Anyways, and again, we're just pulling this towards the middle, away from the glass. Okay? And And we're looking for 1/4 inch of head space. So I could actually top that up just a tiny bit more, and there is a little bit more in the bottom of the pot, so I'm going to do that. Just do it by hand. If there are any air bubbles that you remove, it always changes the head space, so you want to measure it after you remove the air bubbles. Looks like we got exactly 2 jars, so there you go. So definitely worth doing another batch. I usually do a few batches of this. I love it so much. Okay, so this is ready to be wiped, so I've got a damp cloth. I've already also brought my snap lids to a boil. Because it's a marmalade or a jam, it's really sticky, so you want to make sure you get this wiped really well, because the stickiness of that could prevent your jar from sealing. Okay, so let's get our little magnet. Get our sanitized snap lid. And 2. Add our rings. Again, just finger tight. It's kind of hot though, so. Okay, not very tight. We want to be able to let that air escape to seal it. Oh, that one's crooked, so let's get it on straight. There we go. And my pot is still hot from sanitizing my jar, so let's bring it back. Bring it up to a boil. Place those inside because they are very hot. And make sure that they're covered at least by 1 inch, which they are. Cover them with the lid. We'll bring that up to a boil. Okay, we'll bring this up to a boil now, and from the hard boil, we're going to process these in the water bath for 10 minutes from the hard boil on. Then we're going to turn off the burner. We're going to let them sit in here for at least 5 minutes as usual, and then we'll use our lifter to lift them out onto our little tea towel here to cool off to room temperature about 24 hours before we tuck those away into the root cellar. And I know you're going to enjoy this recipe, so I really hope this inspires you to try it, because it's really delicious. It's hard to explain. It's a mix between the sweet and savory. Although it is onions, it's quite sweet, but you've got a little underlay of the savory with the wine. There's a lot of depth of flavor with our little aromatics and spices that we put in there, so I'm sure you will enjoy that. So have a great day, and I hope to see you in the Q&A if you have any questions about this recipe. Thanks. Bye-bye.